Your video's off.
Hey everybody, and welcome to ChiuStream, where we talk about art and life as an artist. I'm your host, Bobby Chiu. And today's guest is my wonderful co-host, Matt Johnson. Say hi, Matt.
Hey folks, glad to be here.
Right on. And for those of you that have never attended one of these live streams before, it is interactive. You could go to slido.com. It doesn't require, sign in or anything like that. But that's where you can ask us questions. You could type in your questions using the hashtag ChiuStream. Find the hashtag ChiuStream and you could type in your questions. And the best thing about it is that we can all vote on the questions that we would like to hear answered the most. All right. Without further ado, let's start the stream. So today's stream, Matt, I got a bit of a topic, on the power of empathy in art.
Really?
That is the topic for today.
Empathy in art. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that people don't really talk about, but is actually one of the most powerful, the most powerful things that you can concentrate on when you're doing art. Now, a lot of people might be going, Bobby, you're full of crap. How's that the most powerful whatever thing? You're just trying to hype us up. Technical skills, maybe learning, understanding light and shadow. That's the most important thing. And I would tell them, no, it isn't. Even though I spent so much time learning all these technical skills, in the end, it's your... what's the term? It's your ability to empathize with other people. That's what's going to get you across the finish line. And let's give them an example. So, Matt, have you ever seen a very viral something that is done very poorly technically?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's something where you look at it and you say, "Oh man, I could have done that," or it's just not very good
Yeah.
at all, but it's got something else about it that people really like.
Let's say South Park, for example. That,
Yeah.
they're not aiming to have the prettiest looking thing in the world. They're looking to have funny content, have things that will move you, have things that will make you laugh, things like that. So I want to talk a little bit about this, okay? Now,
Yeah, that's great because like Robot Chicken, all these things on Adult Swim that we all love so much. I mean, there's something else that's in there that isn't about the artistic skill all the time.
and I love Robot Chicken, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I love South Park. Now,
Yeah.
I also love technical skills and such, but at the same time, for those kind of things, it doesn't really matter anymore. Now, sometimes what you're trying to convey, it involves having really great technical skills. Like, say you're trying to create something that's going to be awe-inspiring, and when people look at it, they're just like, oh my God, how'd they do that? That's amazing. A lot of times you see these things in like museums, perhaps, these paintings where you're just like, how did they do that? How did they do that? So in those kind of cases, perhaps the emotion that you're trying to get is going to be something that involves great technical skills. However, I would say that still the biggest, most important thing in art is learning how to be empathetic. Is that the right term? Empathetic with the viewers. So in other words, tapping into their viewpoint, tapping into their emotions. How are they going to feel when you paint this thing? How are they going to feel, and what do you want them to feel? Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do art for. We're trying to move people in an emotional way, right? So the very first one I want to show here is this painting that I did a while back for a gallery show. It was, Kay and I, we were in Paris at the time. We're spending a month there just painting, loving it. On this particular night, it was raining very, very hard. So I know I'm not supposed to, I should use thinner to thin out my acrylic paints, but I just decided, I'm going to go with water because it's all watery outside. It's all wet outside. I start painting this thing, And you know, it's kind of like these two creatures that are creating shelter for each other while they wait
Yeah,
for the rain to pass.
that's adorable.
Right? And for Kay and I, that really spoke about, to me anyways, about that moment where Kay and I were in France alone in Paris just painting ourselves at night and it's raining outside. And so the painting was called Shelter. And obviously you already hit the nail on the head, Matt, because the intention here, the emotional intent here is to make somebody go, "Aw, that's cute." You know, that's the emotional intent. And without being able to kind of look at my art from the viewer's point of view, not from the creator's point of view, because I was doing that, then it helped me to convey that feeling even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the very first thing I feel when I look at it is empathy for these two adorable creatures. I mean, I admire the technical skill that you have here second. The first thing I feel is, oh, look at them.
Right on. And to clarify, when I say empathy, I'm saying to kind of harness and practice that skill
Mm.
of trying to think about things in other people's shoes. So here's another one. Okay, this one, what is the main kind of thing here? Well, it's kind of like this mean but cute kind of feeling here, where there's this big nasty, monster chasing after this cute little monster, and you look at it, and you're like, oh, it's something mean's gonna happen. Hopefully, this little guy gets away, but it's also the little guy's kind of cute, right? And that gives a certain emotion. That gives a certain feeling to the viewer. Now I'm going to show you another mean but cute and gives a totally different feeling. Right? Mean but cute here with this little piranha puppy chasing after this mushroom kid. However, the feeling that the emotional intent has been flipped. It's been changed. It's giving a much more like, "Aw, that's funny," kind of thing. Where the last one was like, "Aw, I'm almost sad that, this tiny little thing might just get gobbled up by the big monster."
It's great. It's a great story because I feel like there's a past, present, and future to this that I'm imagining in my head as the viewer.
Right on. Um, Next one here. The Ugly Duckling. So that was obviously, that's a fairy tale that a lot of people know of, this duckling that's ugly and the other ducklings don't want to play with him, and then grows up to become this beautiful swan, and oh, the other ducks are so jealous. But in my version, I was thinking, I got to put the Bobby twist on it, and in my version, the ugly duckling doesn't become more beautiful, doesn't become this beautiful swan. The other ducks stop teasing this duck because it just gets bigger and uglier and scarier, to the point where, like, these other ducks, they're scared to make fun of him, right? Scared to make fun of him. Now, this is one of, like, the first lessons that I had in true, the power of empathy. And so I made prints of this. I made prints of this and sold them at various conventions. And then the ones I didn't sell, I bring to the next convention, and so on and so forth. And you know how many prints I sold of this in 3 years before I
Mm.
retired it?
How many?
3. Just
Three.
3. And each one of, I remember one person was this very, just different, a little bit of a creepy guy, like could be a serial killer. I don't know, but kind of gave me a little bit of that vibe. The other one, it was sold to this lovely couple. They had tattoos all over, right? And their
Hmm.
little baby is holding this teddy bear that's a scary teddy bear.
Oh yeah,
You see where I'm going with this? The
yeah.
other one, I don't know. Now, why did this painting fail? in with my standards, why did it fail
Hmm.
commercially, as a print? Well, it's because if we tap into our kind of empathy muscles here, what would the viewer feel when they look at this? They might go, ha ha ha, that's really funny. Now, do I want to put that in my house? If I
And see
did
it every
hang
day,
it,
right?
right? If I did hang it up in my house, where's this going to go? Well, the intent, of course, whether it hits it or not, the intent when you look at this is this would go in your child's bedroom, right?
Right.
Now, what are you saying about your child if you bought this print and hung
Mm.
it up in their room? Yes, I
Yeah.
know you're ugly, but don't worry. You're just going to get uglier and uglier and meaner and, until nobody wants to mess with you at all. Now, that was a great lesson, right? Lessons through our mistakes. So then after that, I think it was like a year and a half later, my wonderful friends at Gallery Arludique in Paris, they were doing a gallery show where they were having a group show where everybody painted something according to a fairy tale. And which fairy tale did I get? I got the Ugly Duckling again. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time painting something where I'm intending to sell it and nobody buys it.
Right.
So this time I did this for the Ugly Duckling. This little guy, what does it say to the viewer? How would the viewer feel about this one? They're going to go, aw, that's so cute. I like it. I'm going to get this, hopefully. And why? Because, yes, I'm saying this is the Ugly Duckling. But in this painting, hopefully, what the viewer gets from it is, yeah, it's the Ugly Duckling because it's special. But it's not ugly. It has all the potential in the world because it's so special. It has this kind of like tail that looks like it could swim. It has these little wings on it that looks like perhaps it could fly later. It has these little antennas on it. What did they do? I don't know, but they do something special, I guarantee you. Now, when this was sold, and it was sold right away, I can guarantee you the people are like, I'm going to also put this into my child's bedroom, right? That's when you look at a print or a painting and you know where in your house it's going to go, that becomes very powerful. And if it makes sense, right? So I'm painting this painting, it should go in somebody's study or something like that. And yes, when I look at it from the other person's point of view and really take everything about me away and put just like the viewer's viewpoint there, would I want this in the study? And if the answer is yes, then boom, you got to hit the power of
So, and
empathy.
that's wonderful because I think oftentimes when I create something, even I feel like I've done a good job. I've put together a technical painting that I'm proud of, or maybe I've just done a little better than I did the last time. But I still don't necessarily feel something when I look at it. So I guess there's a little bit of a missing ingredient there in empathy where I you can kind of self-assess and say if I look at it and don't really have that feeling, what can you add to that? Like, do you think that there's a way to fix artwork like that? I guess is my question.
Is there a way to fix a bad soup? Yes,
Mm,
generally, unless it started off just horrible,
mm,
right? You can add things to it to make it better. And that's very much like art as well. A lot of times it's like you add that extra little thing and then boom, oh, that's it right there. Love it. You added in whatever, a little cookie for the little guy. I don't know what it is,
mm.
but yeah,
That's a great
absolutely.
way to look at it.
So let's go to some questions as I
Yeah.
play a little video for you guys, a little painting video that I did.
Yeah, that's great. We have some good ones here. Thank you guys for sending us some questions. And don't forget you can still add, you can still upvote. Um, Henry Doxy asks, how much attention should I give to line art as a setup for a painting?
Um, well, let's reframe that a tiny bit, okay, and say how much attention should I give to the drawing? And
Mm,
yeah, I don't know what I would say before, but what I would definitely say now is drawing is perhaps just as important as the painting aspect of things. Perhaps it is even more important. I'm not too sure, but it is extremely, extremely, extremely important. It is the foundation that the whole house is built on. Um, Craig
well,
Mullins, one of my favorite painters in the world, perhaps my absolute favorite, he, when I asked him, what's the secret to painting? He was like, drawing.
mm,
And that really flipped my whole perspective around. And I was like, if he thinks drawing is that important, and everybody knows him as a painter, then I better pay a lot more attention to,
yeah.
to drawing.
Well, I feel like you draw like this painting that you're doing now is a perfect example to talk about this because you did a lot more drawing here than you would normally do, I think.
Oh, yeah. Um, I should put in a clause over here. The This is from the Jim Bob drawing show that I do with my
Mm.
buddy Jim Bryson, who's an incredible, incredible artist. And so he would draw the thing, and then I would
Oh,
paint the
okay.
thing. So
That's
yeah, in
right.
this case, it was very much Jim's drawing, and
No
yeah,
wonder it doesn't look like your style of drawing.
I
Okay.
know, I know. Big shouts out to Jim. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
buddy. I should have
No,
put your
it's
name on there, but I was rushing in for this stream.
but I guess still it counts though that like a lot of people want to flesh out a drawing all the way and then other people want to start with their interesting character in the center of the page and then fill in this world around it. Do you think there's pros and cons to doing it that way?
Uh, no. I think,
Mm,
yeah, I don't think that there's any particular proper way to do things.
yeah.
I know of some fantasy artists. I remember, I think Jesper Ising. He just won the gold award at Spectrum for one of their topics. I forget which one. I think is unpublished. Anyways, masterful artist, and I believe he actually does the character first, and then figures out the surroundings. And then I've also seen some people that are just weird, and they'll start painting whatever epic thing that they're painting just from the top corner,
Mm-hmm.
and then they slowly just go, more and more until they're on the bottom corner, and then they're done. Like, what the heck? How does that work? But somehow it works.
That's great. I mean, I guess different style for everybody makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask another question. According to your opinion, what's a good portfolio criteria look like? I know we talk about portfolios a lot. This question is specific to illustration.
Lovely.
What? Yeah.
Um, so this was something I was talking to Claire Hummel about. She's an art director at Valve, um, very very talented, and she was saying that she just came back from GDC, which is the game um, designers convention, or I forget
Mm-hmm.
what the acronyms stand for. Anyways, she was saying that there's so many more people now with amazing technical skills. And I was like, yeah, but do you remember them all, even if they're technically masterful? She's like, no. We talked about the whole entire thing about a great idea. A great idea is what's going to make you remember stuff. So technical skills, are they needed? Yes, absolutely. Um, and, but not as much as I think, and it really depends on what kind of job you want to get. Because if it's
Mm-hmm.
like technical heavy, then yeah, you would need technical skills, of course. But the thing that I would emphasize for people to concentrate on is the idea. You know, when I put this portfolio down and I look at 1,000 more, am I going to remember this? Right? That's a
When
big one.
Yeah, and then I think that kind of goes back to empathy, where you said, "Well, how do I get an idea?" That was going to be my question to follow up and add
Yes,
to this. So,
absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like you how are you going to know it's a good idea,
yeah.
right? You know what's funny? What's funny was I was reading about this like experiment that people were doing, and they were eavesdropping on all of these different conversations, right? And they would record anytime people laughed. And then they would record what did they laugh about. A lot of
Mm,
people they didn't really laugh at anything too funny. You know, like sometimes it's like I'm here and then everybody starts laughing. You know? Um, this other person says something like so which drink are you gonna buy me? You know, it's like these things that it's not that funny,
uh-huh.
but people would bust out laughing their guts. Why? Because they're friends, right? They know
Right.
each other and they're friends, and so laughter it comes a lot easier than if a stranger came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm here." You'd be like, "Whoa, what the heck
Yeah.
is going on here?" Same thing with like stand-up comedians. They got to work so much harder to get a laugh than your buddy to make you laugh,
So much harder.
right? So um, a lot of times we paint something and then we show our friend and we go, haha, check out this funny thing I did. And then they go, ah, haha, that's funny. And you think it's funny, but it's only funny to your closest friends. And you haven't taken the time to think about it from a stranger's point of view, your target audience's point of view. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, because that empathy right there is what that's your tough crowd. If you're a comedian, you got a tough crowd, or your open mic night where you just don't get any laughs. Like, you have to have those experiences to get better at comedy. So in a lot of ways you have to, have those open mic nights for your artwork too, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that in your head with your empathy.
And this isn't even open mic nights to like just the general audience. These are open mic nights to like other comedians that are really
Mm,
good,
yeah.
right? It's like Claire Hummel, art director of Valve, is looking at your portfolio. She knows how to move people, and she's judging your stuff. Does this move
Yeah.
people? Is this a really good idea? Am I going to remember this? You know, that's what we're dealing with. And if
Yeah.
you don't have a name for yourself either, then, you know, you have to really concentrate on those good ideas. So that's why I was thinking, man, I should do a stream about this because this is going to be really important for a bunch of people out there.
It's so far it's tying into everything. It's great, because that's great advice for a portfolio. Have a little bit of empathy with your viewer, that this is someone that you need to leave an impression on. It's good advice. Let's ask another one here. Uh, Next question on the top: any tips for people just learning art that feel pressure after positive feedback to do something as good or better the next time? And then, of course, maybe they fail.
That's how it is. You know, and that's why I love art. It's so elusive. It's like you work so hard at doing something good, then maybe you get some positive feedback, and then you try to do more of it, and you're like, ah, it's not working anymore. I lost it. And then you keep digging in for another week. Failures, failures, failures. And then that next level pops its head up again and goes, you're at the next level again. You know, and then you're there for like 2 days and then you lose it. And then it comes back in 3 days, you know, and so on and so forth until you got it. And that's the wonderful thing about art. So you just got to keep going. And failure, it's not failure, right? It's getting through all the crusty stuff that is covering your new talents underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I looked at all of even, your artwork, who's, of course, obviously, we all admire everything you do. It's like, I don't know that I would say that my favorite painting of yours is your most recent painting.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fair to say, right? That like, your artwork ebbs and flows, and you change styles here and there, and you can't expect every painting to just get better and better, right?
Definitely. And some ideas that I've had like 10 years ago, I'm still struggling to try to get an idea just as good. Like
Mm.
there's this painting that a lot of people know my work from, which is called like the Big Bad Bunny Eater. And it's this big
Mm-hmm.
green monster, and it has this fur pattern of this like weird looking rabbit on its face. And then it's surrounded by all these little rabbits that are getting closer and closer towards it because it's attracted all these rabbits. And then, you know, it looks like these rabbits might be in trouble, right? Especially with the title Big Bad Bunny Eater. And I really love that idea. And yeah, I've struggled a lot with trying to get an idea that I liked as much.
That was a really good one. So I can see that being the case where you're just like, man, I gotta top the big bad bunny eater.
Yeah, and that was like 10 years ago. Who knows?
Wow. Yeah. Um, well, so should we go to another question here?
Sure.
How do you grow your social media naturally without paying for premium posts on Instagram?
Ah, I like this one. Okay. First, empathy can come back into it. So like, how is the person going to feel when I post this thing? Also, what are people going to feel when I give them this comment on their post? So
Mm.
let me put this all together. When you post something, perhaps just before you post it, depending on which social media platform or whatever that you're posting on, it might be good to comment on like 10 different people before you post your thing, right? You comment on Matt's stuff, you comment on Janet's stuff, you comment on Maria's stuff, and so on and so forth. And then if they are not like movie stars or something, if they have like, 12 comments, they're going to notice the 13th or 14th comment. They're going to look at it and go, oh, wow, that's cool. Hopefully, unless your comment is, kind of invisible, doesn't really give any emotional impact to them. Then they might just go, oh, okay, cool, I got another comment, and that's it. But if it's a
Mm.
good comment, if it's an effective comment that moves people, right,
Yeah.
then they'll come and check out your account. And when they
Yeah.
check out your account, if your post is good or whatever, they might just leave a comment. When they leave that comment back to them,
Mm.
and then comment on 2 more people. So for every comment that you get, comment 3 times. 1 back to the person and 2 more to 2 new people. And
Wow.
right? Doesn't this make sense now? Until
It
you
really
can't
does.
handle it anymore. Until you have so many comments that you're just like, "Oh, I made it. Awesome. I can't really comment on everybody else's stuff." Now, some people might go, yeah, Bobby's saying this, make your comments, not just cool or something like that. But I got a comment from Bobby, and it's just a freaking happy face. My thing to that is that when I can, I leave nice, very thoughtful comments, this and that. However, if you have a little bit of a following, if you have a little bit of clout, if you are, say, let's go to the extreme, and it's like Snoop Dogg just commented on my stuff,
Mm.
I would be like, holy for shizzle, look, this is amazing. Even if it was just a period, he just puts like a dot, You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm still going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to tell all my friends and blah, blah, blah. So the higher up you are in the food chain, the less elaborate, the less, you know, awesome kind of comments that you need to do, or any comments at all. However, there is also a little twist to this, okay? So when you comment on people, generally, you want to stay within your same ecosystem. Generally, okay? Unless you are a very, very good writer of copy. If you're a very good copywriter, then you can push certain buttons and do something very smart, and then somebody
Mm.
way above your level is still going to come back and comment, you know, and start making a conversation.
So when you say ecosystem, what do you mean?
So that means like somebody closer to your same level,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you have, say you have 1,000 followers, and then you comment on somebody with 1,500 followers, that's, you're gonna have a way more probable, uh, you know, response from that person,
Mm-hmm.
good response, than if you commented on somebody with 100,000 followers. You know, but if you look at celebrity Instagrams and things like that, they will still comment back to other people, but a lot of times it's to other celebrities,
Mm,
right?
true.
So again, it's like the same ecosystem. And that becomes really cool for the fans, because then they get to watch these two people interacting that they really like.
That makes sense. Do you feel like this is something that what if, you know, you're really in it for the likes and you're really in it for the attention for your artwork, but you're just like, God, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to chat with all these people. Like it's just not my priority. I want to paint and I want everybody to love it.
That's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder.
Yeah. You can, you know, there's always like a million ways to do things. I'm sure you
Mhm.
could do that, but it is way, way harder.
Mhm. I mean,
In the
this is a
beginning,
thing that
it's like in the beginning, you made an account. You made an account on
mhm.
YouTube. You made an account on Instagram. Good for you. Who knows of this account?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
Nobody, unless you tell people. Unless there's somebody telling somebody. You know, if you're all by yourself, if you're an independent artist, you're just starting
Mhm.
off, you need to tell people. Now I know that a lot of times, especially us artists, are like, I don't want to tell anybody. You know,
Mhm.
like, man, I don't, I feel uncomfortable yelling from the rooftops that I did something, right? I did
Mhm.
some piece of art. But if you don't, who will? Nobody. You know,
That's true.
so yeah, suck it in and just do it.
That is some great social media advice right there. I love it. Let's move on to another one here. How do you choose colors to make a piece of art empathy? I think this is meant to be like, this is an anonymous question, so forgive me, anonymous, but I think it's asking, how can you empathize with color in a piece of art?
You know, when you look at abstract art and it just gives you a certain vibe, it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a certain emotion, that's what you got to tap into, is
Mm,
take your kind of, leave your ego on the curb or whatever, and look at your art just as a viewer. How does it make you feel? You know, because there is no magical formula. I'm not going to tell you, oh, if you want things to be romantic, use red. That doesn't make sense. You know,
right. Right.
um, those kind of rules, for every rule or guideline, there's like a million variations of ways to that people have broken it.
Do you try to still experiment with color a lot, or do you feel like you have like your kind of rules you go to?
I hate when I'm using the same colors or something like that. Like I'm always trying to break out. I'm always trying to look for that challenge.
Yeah.
I will stay on something because I want to really, really understand it. I want to learn it to the point where I can just do it, um, you know, automatically, just through my own mental library of the possibilities that I can use and why would I want to use them and how to make them effective. But after that, like I've really, once things are working, Matt, and this is like a general comment, but once things are working, I generally lose interest.
Do you capture that? Like, do you capture that moment? Like, do you say, "Whoa, wait, I need to step back"?
What, like, what do you mean?
The moment of like, this is all like working, and now I need to say, okay, now that I'm at this point, it's time to shake things up. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so it's like I start drawing a creature or whatever, and people like it in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to think of how to make this thing happen and how to make people like it, bring some
Mm-hmm.
appeal to it. Then I do another one, and it's pretty much the same thing, and it's just slightly different here and there. It doesn't have fur, it has scales now, or whatever, but same
Mm-hmm.
kind of emotion. Boom, great. I'm starting to get bored at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Wow.
starting to get bored, and if it gets like, oh yeah, I know every move it takes to do this, then I get bored. Also, like that's a very general kind of statement that I would like to make as like that's how I feel about everything. So like um, workshops, schoolism
Mm-hmm.
workshops, they're going well. I know how to do them. You know, granted, schoolism workshops, it's not that easy to do. There's always a million surprises. Like some people will just, things happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So who knows? But it's gotten to a point where I'm like, yeah, I know how that's gonna work. I'm just not that interested anymore, honestly. And so because of that, all of a sudden Lightbox Expo.
Mm-hmm.
What if I created an event where it isn't 6 guests, it's 300 guests? What's that gonna look like? What if I, instead of spent X amount to create an event, what if I really, dove into a deep end and started doing an event that's like, you know, 20 times more expensive, 20
Mm-hmm.
times bigger, or whatever. Actually, more like 50 times bigger. Um, but yeah, you get the idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like it's that you're a builder and a creator, but you want to challenge yourself too. You don't want to just throw, three pointers all day long with no challenges, right?
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? I do feel like some entrepreneurs, they're not about that. They're about like making things structurally super sound and then just keep sharpening that samurai knife, that
Mm,
samurai sword. Even though it's already sharp, they want it crazy, crazy razor sharp, uh,
and you're
which is
on to the
fine.
next.
Yeah. For me, I
Yeah,
like to create a team so that they can keep doing that thing and make it super sharp. And then I'm on to the next problem.
that's great. That's why all these things are working, and we all love them. Let's go to another question. This one's kind of funny. I think it's have you ever failed along your art career? Can you tell us about a time you failed at something?
Have you ever been pissed or fallen
Right.
along your art career? That's a good one. So, yeah, for sure. I could tell you in the very beginning, it was like a lot of the things I did, if I was to go back into time and do it all over again, knowing the things that I know, I'd be able to do them in like a quarter of the time with, like double the sleep that I was getting back then, uh, all sorts of stuff. Generally, what we do when we're younger is like we have so much energy, so much, chutzpah, so much fire in the belly that it doesn't matter if we're doing something slightly off, right?
Hmm.
We just bulldoze through the process until we get to the other side and we've gotten through. But then you get older and then you get a little smarter, or perhaps, like me, I had an arm injury, right? And it's just getting worse and worse. And I wasn't able to draw as much. So then I have to think, okay, well, how do I make my time more effective? Now my arm's great, and it took a good long time. But that's one of the big lessons that I learned. And also through that lesson, I also learned like uh, that there's certain times you got to really think about it. And there's certain times where you need to stop and you need to stop working so hard, get off that treadmill, get off that hamster wheel, and start taking care of yourself because your body is trying to tell you something, like mine was. Like things are not going to get better this way, Bobby. If you keep going down this path and you keep doing what you're doing and sleeping 4 hours, 3 hours a day, things are going to break. I didn't listen. I just kept going. So by the time I was starting to pay attention and recuperate, it took me way longer to recuperate. Way, way, way longer. I'm talking years. Um, it's like when you have a ball of yarn and you just kind of unravel it, throw it up in the air, and then let it all land, and then you collect it all. There's
Yeah.
going to be some knots in there. Deal with those knots first before you start using that yarn again. Because that's what I wasn't doing, right? I was right back using that yarn and then making more knots and tighter knots. And then all of a sudden, like, where's the problem? Well, I don't know, because there's a million knots here. I don't know where to start. Yeah.
Do you think focusing that energy, is there like a magic bullet of like, or not really, I guess like a red flag if you feel like you're working too hard in the wrong direction? Like, I feel like a lot of young artists, especially like myself, I mean, I feel like I was doing what you did. I burned the candle at both ends for a while. But like, is there a red flag, like not making enough progress in your artwork, or not getting enough good reception from your artwork? Anything where you would say you may need to pause and like try to change things?
Yeah. Reevaluate the direction that
Yeah.
you're going, right? Because we could have all the energy in the world, all the ambition in the world, and our goal is to run through that brick wall that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to happen? I hope it does, because most likely what's going to happen is you're going to run straight into that brick wall, you're going to fall over, and you're going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like this. It's time, effort, logic. Those three things all need to be there. And of course, love kind of powers a lot of these things, our love of art and things like that. So, time, you got to put in the time. While you're putting in the time, you got to put in the effort. These things, you know, younger people, they know about this stuff. They know that they need to put in the time and the effort. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Logic, that's the last one. You got to keep every once in a while, just like when you're driving and you check your rearview mirror, even though you might not need to, because you're checking your surroundings. You're checking if you're still going the right way, that kind of thing. That's what you want to do with your career as well. Constantly kind of stop, look up, look around, and go, okay, am I going in the right direction? Because if I'm not, I need to pivot. I need to change. Now, how do you know whether or not you should pivot? How do you know whether or not you're going in the right direction, if it's logical? Well, if you think about it, and a lot of times this takes some deep thinking. If you're thinking about it and you're going, okay, I think I should stop, but is it logic telling me to stop? Or is it
Mm.
it's doppelganger, fear? Because fear, a lot of times, is disguised as logic. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to pursue being an art director because there's only a certain amount of art directors on a film, and the chances of me getting it's no good. Right? Well, is that fear or is that logic? Are people still art directors? Are there still new art directors in the world popping up? If there are, then I would say that's fear telling you that, that's the wrong idea. Now,
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was gonna say, does that, and that ties back in a little bit with empathy, right? Like, being able to kind of look objectively at other people's careers and kind of the cause and effect of what's happening with other people and put yourself in and kind of put a mirror up to yourself in that way. Does that make sense?
Somewhat, somewhat. I would, yeah. I I
I
don't
might be
know. I
reaching.
need to think about that a little bit more. But I do
Yeah.
feel like logic is the best word to describe it,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, another example of this is um, when I was starting off. You know what, Matt? I was looking on my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and I went to like the about little tab.
Hmm.
It said I started my YouTube channel in 2006. Holy
Whoa.
smokes. That was
Whoa.
when I think YouTube was 1 years old.
1 year old. Yep.
Yeah. And back then, was it logical to spend a whole bunch of time making videos on YouTube? I don't know.
Probably not. Maybe.
Probably not. But then, but then what I kind of looked at was like, okay, well, actually, this is why I knew that it was important. Okay, so I'm not even, I think I was, first time I discovered YouTube, I, Imaginism Studios wasn't working, it wasn't existing at that time, and I was sitting in a training room with all these other people getting trained, right, for this studio, this television studio. And so then somebody in the front row, and it's like theater style, so we can all see the people's screens in front of us. And somebody in the very front row starts checking out this thing called YouTube. And then the next person's like, what is that? Oh, let me check that out. What is that? And three people, they're like, oh shit, YouTube. Okay, they check that out. Oh, wow, interesting. And then boom, 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 boom. Within like, an hour at the most, the majority of this training room on every computer was YouTube. You know?
Wow.
So with that experience, that made me go, okay, yeah, this is important. It's not anything big right now, but it will get big because I saw it organically just spread, right? So then in that case, it was logical for me. Here's another one. I was like, the internet is growing. Everybody seems to now have an email address. Even myself, because back then I didn't even like computers. It was like, are you a computer guy? That's the question that we would ask each other. Are you a computer
Hmm.
person? And that means, do you use computers at all? And I would say no. Now I am. Now I got an
Hmm.
email address and blah blah blah. So then I started thinking, the internet. Yeah. You know what? With the internet now, we can do work for anybody and anywhere as long as there's good internet. So I'm going to
Hmm.
start my studio here in Toronto, Canada, so I could be close to my family. And I'm still going to work on those Hollywood movies. I'm still going to work on those blockbuster movies or those games or whatever, all through the power of the internet. What did all my friends say? You're crazy. What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. Or do you have an agent at least? I go, no, I don't believe in the agent anymore. I think we're on to a new era where, you know, people will know us because we're exposing ourselves on the internet. And they were like, okay, well, shoot, that's not going to work at all, right? But why? Why did they think that it wasn't going to work? Because nobody's really done it yet? Well, is that logical? Is that
No.
logical? If nobody's done it yet, then that's impossible all of a sudden? Because not by history. If you look into history by any accounts, there's always a first. And that person that did it first, did they have antennae like out of their heads? They had some some sort of superpower? No. They were the same as us. 2 arms, 2 legs, most likely. A head, most likely. And a brain, most likely. And that's it. And they did all these things where it was the first time ever in the whole entire species of man, or human beings, I should say. Schoolism, same thing. You know, what are you talking about? Online school. How's that going to work? And I know this sounds funny now, but back then, videos were very hard to do at that time. You remember when
Mhm.
data was expensive,
Yeah.
right? But then I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, well, how rapidly will videos get cheaper? How rapidly will data get cheaper? Yeah, I think it's going to be right away. So, yeah, it still makes sense. It's still logical.
And that comes back to the fear side of it. Like, you weren't afraid to spend your time doing these things. I
Oh, I was
mean,
afraid. I was afraid, Matt.
oh, okay. So, well,
For
then
sure.
what helped you get over that then? Because that's kind of, was it just the logic helped you overcome the fear? Is that what you're saying? Like you kind of saw the connected dots?
Right. Because we've all done things that we were scared about, but we ended up doing them anyways. No matter how small, we can always find an example,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe riding your bicycle for the first time. You were scared, but you're
Yeah.
still going to do it. So it goes back to that whole logic thing. Is it logical? Yes, I believe this is logical. It all makes sense to me. Every time I try to poke a hole in it, I find another reason why, yeah, there's no hole, right? Just
That makes
that one's a
sense.
bit of a tougher one because a lot of times, like I said, fear disguises itself as logic.
Very true. And I've run into that a couple of times just in making like small job moves or a big job move where you're going to move and it's, or, you know, you're not sure if you're going to like this thing. You got to go all in for it if you're going to do it. I think sometimes you can consider the option of the alternative. How would I feel if I didn't do this? Like, does that make sense to you? If
Yeah,
what's the alternative? Like, if I'm not going to do it, isn't that more scary sometimes?
I totally get it. I don't even think about that anymore.
Really?
That doesn't even come in my mind anymore. You know,
Huh.
like Lightbox Expo, it was like that was something where I felt I was the perfect person to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is I want to create an event where it's like the be all end all of all artist focused events, where it's all four major, art food groups of movies, games, illustrations, and animation all converging in one place. Never really been done at this level before ever. Was I scared? Yeah. Yeah, because it's a lot of money or whatever, but a lot of things I do I'm scared of.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll keep marching forward because it's logical. And the other thing for me, a big one, was like, who else is going to do it?
Right.
Because there's plenty of other artists, and there's plenty of other artists that have really good business sense. But the last over 10 years, I've been traveling with all of these top level artists. I've been getting to know them in interviews and schoolism and all this stuff. So like over, it's like 13, 14 years of very organic, very genuine networking. And now all of a sudden I know a lot of these artists. So I am that kind of, in my mind, I'm that perfect person to
Mm-hmm.
actually pull this off, to do it. And so because of what I feel is going to be the benefit to the art community,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm part of the art community as well, so like because of that benefit, I felt like I had to do it. So there's a selfish side to me as well, right? Which is I want to work on movies.
Yeah.
That's what I got into this whole thing about. I want to work on not just movies, I want to work on cool games, I want to work on cool projects, I want to do art. That's my passion. But that's the selfish side, right? And then the other side is the person that's like, okay, well, you're in the perfect position to make a difference in the artist community. Whether you want to or not, it's for the better good. And what a shame if you didn't. That eats away at me. What a
Mm,
shame if you didn't. Because you know
absolutely.
that you could make the community or whatever a better place. Yeah, that's what really, really pushes me.
That's a powerful motivator right there. Do we have time for a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Um, I like this one from Mina. I have set deadlines for a personal project, but I'm starting to fall behind due to uncontrollable events such as emergencies. How do you overcome this?
Uh, well, uncontrollable events.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think you're perhaps, I'm just guessing, that your organizational system isn't flexible enough. So for
Mm.
me, things happen. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have to prioritize and everything changes and you got to do everything differently. Um, so how I kind of look at it is if I didn't finish something today, that's totally fine. I'm just going to put it on my list for the next day, except I'm going to put even more urgency on it.
Mm-hmm.
And how I do that is I color code all the things that I need to do. And if I want to put a bit more priority on it, I would label it pink. If I don't do it that day, that's totally fine. Next day, it's even more pink. Before you know it, it is blood red. And when you're looking at a list and only one thing is blood red, you will feel that urgency and you will do that thing.
That makes a lot of sense because sometimes it's not that we don't have enough time; it's that we don't have the priority straight, right?
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good way. Another one that is popular about Instagram here. It's a good question. Do you think it's more effective to post regularly, like studies and sketches, or more important to post completed work? Quantity versus time.
Completed work is not even an issue here. What the issue is consistency versus quality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you could have really amazing sketches.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, consistency. Everybody talks about it now. Hey, I think I was one of the first people to really, really promote the hell out of that whole entire idea of being very consistent with your posting. But
Mm-hmm.
now everybody talks about it. Great. Um, high quality though. You also have to have a quality to your work, or else, I've seen some people they post every day, and their stuff doesn't really grow too much. Why not? Because it doesn't have that quality. It doesn't have that really good quality in there. Um, and then you see some people that don't post regularly, and then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden binge post a whole bunch of stuff. The person that comes to mind is Corey Loftus, one of the best character designers in the world. He'll kind of go MIA for a while, and then all of a sudden, Inktober comes around, or May, I think the thing
Haven't
is
heard of that
called.
one yet. That's fun.
Yeah, in May,
And I think
May.
that there's and like if you're not feeling strong about your category of work, like your actual artwork, and you still want to be consistent, a lot of people kind of theme their week, right? I mean, have you seen that be a prevalent way of doing it, Bobby? Like, here's a sketch, here's a watercolor, here's my dog.
Um, sure. I don't know if that's the most effective way to do things.
Yeah.
Um, Again, this is a really great question to kind of end things off because again,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like we can go back to the original topic of this whole entire, you know, stream today, which is empathy. So when you
Mm-hmm.
post something, think about how that person's going to feel. Sometimes what I do is I will screen grab uh, the YouTube homepage, and then I'll put my own little thumbnail. I'll put it in Photoshop, and I'll put my own little thumbnail for my new video as one of those videos that I see on the homepage.
Wow.
Will I
That's
see it? Will I notice it? How will I feel about it? How will I feel about the topic that I wrote down there, the subject line? And then I'll go in there and, kind of look at it again Like, okay, now I clicked on the thing. Now I'm reading the description. Do I care about it? Let's tap into that person that doesn't even know me. Would they care about it? Uh, that becomes a huge thing. Let me give you another example that not a lot of people talk about. I haven't heard too many people talk about this, so hopefully it's a good one. If you do this on Facebook, I was doing this on Facebook and I was like putting these different thumbnails up, and one really stuck out to me. Why? Because it was orange.
Hmm.
Facebook is mostly what?
Blue.
Blue.
Oh.
Contrasting colors. All of a sudden, in a whole bunch of thumbnails, that one stands out like a sore thumb. Right? So
Wow.
again, it's like, okay, well, how do I tap into how the viewer is going to feel when I see this piece of art or whatever? That's what I was doing in Facebook, right? How are people going to feel with these different thumbnails? That's the one. That's the one that I need to post.
That's really smart. What a good theme for the day.
Yeah, I like this theme. I like this
Yeah.
theme. I'm going to end off this stream today with the final. I'm just going to put the final up there. But hey, I had a wonderful time. It's been a while, Matt. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really nice to connect with you again. I hope
Absolutely.
everybody will subscribe to the channel. Check out lightboxexpo.com. This is the place that's going to happen September 6th to 8th. It's going to be the biggest thing in the art community. Meet all of your favorite artists behind your favorite stuff: movies, games, video, animation, illustration. Uh, it's going to be a monumental event. So I hope I see everybody there.
Yeah.